From the beginning, Alice came in multiples. July 4th, 1862. 3 young girls beg their rowing companion to tell them a story. He's a math lecturer with a wild imagination, and they know he'll deliver something good. So right there, maybe on the boat, maybe on the shore, he spins them a tale about a girl who falls down a rabbit hole.
Either this well is very deep, or I'm falling very slowly.
That math lecturer? Charles Dodgson, aka Lewis Carroll, and one of those girls was Alice Liddell. That afternoon boat ride launched something massive. Over 400 adaptations, film, TV, opera, video games, theme park rides. Multiple new versions every single year. There are Alice cafes in New York and Alice restaurants across Japan. Somehow, the spontaneous little riverboat story turned into a kind of folk myth. In this video series, we're exploring how Alice rose to this level of fame and why, and the many stories nested within each adaptation. Who made them? How does each story tell its own version of Alice? How and why has the story of Alice in Wonderland spread meme-like across popular culture and history?
Friend? Friend!
Who's he?
Watch.
Alice in Wonderland unfolded like a telescope, as Alice herself would say, in stages. That 1862 boat ride? We'll never know exactly what Carroll said, or how the girls interrupted, or what details they begged him to add. But once Carroll first told the story of Alice, he couldn't let it go. He handwrote and illustrated a version just for Alice Liddell, Alice's Adventures Underground, a gift, not a book. Then, in 1865, he went public with the version we know today, with John Tenniel's iconic illustrations. So before the public ever saw Alice, Carroll had already transformed it multiple times. And he wasn't done. 1871, Through the Looking Glass, now we've got Tweedledee and Tweedledum, the Jabberwocky, Humpty Dumpty. Characters so iconic many people think they're from the original Wonderland.
Are they always this way?
Family trait.
Carroll even made a version for toddlers, the nursery Alice, so kids could live with Wonderland before they could even read it. As Carroll put it, my ambition now is to be read by children aged not to 5. To be read? Nay, not so. Say rather to be thumbed, to be cooed over, to be dog-eared, to be rumpled. Carroll wanted to create a lifelong love, something that would grow with readers, transform with them. In the 1880s, Carroll advised on a musical theater version called Alice in Wonderland, a dream play. Carroll loved the stage. His dream, an operetta in the Gilbert and Sullivan vein. He even asked Arthur Sullivan to compose it. Sullivan was interested, but his fee was steep. Understandable, but what a loss. I would have loved a Gilbert and Sullivan Alice. Carroll eventually partnered with dramatist Henry Saville Clark and composer Walter Slaughter. The two had already collaborated on the operetta An Adamless Eden a few years earlier. If the title An Adamless Eden grabs you, and it definitely grabbed me, here's the deal. Clark and Slaughter wrote it for Lila Clay's all-female theatrical troupe. The premise? After a women-led rebellion, society continues without men. Here's a sample lyric. Now ended in a panic, the reign of man tyrannic. Each girl may be a rover, our slavery is over. We live henceforth in clover from this eventful day. It's a somewhat questionable, very period take on first-wave feminist ideas, and yes, they sing their way through it. From there, Clark and Slaughter teamed up on a dream play. Carroll agreed to work with them, with conditions, most essentially that it needed to keep an innocent spirit rather than lean into crude adult humor. Given An Adamless Eden, you can maybe see why he flagged that. For the 1886 dream play, Carroll insisted that Alice be played by a child actor. That choice aligns with his stated goal to keep the stage version for children in tone, and it shaped how audiences saw Alice, brisk, literal, unintimidated. So the child actor constraint nudged the adaptation away from menace and towards wit and musical play. A dream play opened at the Prince of Wales Theatre in London's West End on December 23, 1886. Carroll was involved in everything: script, casting, staging, the works. The play begins with a prologue signed by HSC, Henry Saville Clark, the adapter. To Lewis Carroll, a nursery magician took all little children by the hand and led them laughing through the book where Alice walks in Wonderland. Ours is the task with elfin dance and song to give to childhood's gaze that wonderland, and should it chance to win a smile, be thine the praise. I love this. It suggests a shared wonderland, multiple authors collaborating. But in the same breath, it crowns Carol as the creator, be thine the praise. It's generous and a little auteurist and almost religious even. Now here's the frustrating part. No recordings of a dream play survive from 1886 to 1940. We can only imagine what they look like with the help of photos and scripts. We have the 1886 libretto and 1888 revision, documentation of a 1900 revival with added songs, and a 1941 phonograph that stays pretty close to the original. What jumps out in the dream play script is how young Alice feels, but not shy, quiet young. She's youthful, fresh, and direct, not putting up with any adult nonsense. She calls things as she sees them. The adult figures posture and pontificate, but mostly fail to intimidate. They guide her for a scene or two, then fall back into their roles. The dream play also softens some of the book's violence and weirdness. The Duchess breezily advises,
"If the baby turns into a pig, don't worry. It does sometimes."
When off with her head flies, Alice answers,
I'm sure you don't really mean that.
Alice even resolves the Act 1 tension. Called as a witness in the Knave of Hearts trial, she effectively plays judge, not guilty, provided he take care not to steal the tempting tarts. And here's my favorite tweak. Carol's own add-on to The Walrus and the Carpenter. He was worried the original might scare kids in the audience. Quick refresher, in the book, the poem ends with the walrus and the carpenter eating the innocent oysters they befriended. Carol's solution to make it less dark? Bring the oysters back as ghosts and have them take revenge by suffocating the walrus and the carpenter? You be the judge, as the first oyster sings, "Let oysters rock your cradle and lull you into rest. And if that will not do it, will sit upon your chest." And the second oyster comes in with, "Oh, woeful weeping walrus, your tears were all a sham. You're greedier for oysters than children are for jam. You like to have an oyster to give the meal a zest? Excuse me, wicked walrus, for stamping on your chest." Stamps. "For stamping on your chest." Okay, maybe the oyster ghost didn't murder the walrus and the carpenter. Maybe they just gave them indigestion. But you have to admit they had the last word. And it was catchy enough to sing on the way out. The dream play softens the book's darker edges and lets the oysters get their say. It shifts the wonder from bodies changing to ideas changing. Though they feel essential now, the play removes the growing shrinking business and the magical snacks, effects that were hard to stage live. In their place, transformation moves inward. Language misbehaves, identity slides, wonder shifts from spectacle to wit. When Alice recites the poem Father William, yes, you know my bias, the caterpillar declares it wrong from beginning to end. Good day. This joke might slip by today's audiences, but Victorian viewers would have caught it immediately as they were familiar with the original poem on which Carol's satire was based. The original had a tidy moral lesson. Carol flips that piety into a sales pitch. In Carol's version, it's not austerity that kept Father William healthy. It's a special ointment he now sells. Father William was essentially an early pyramid scheme huckster. The point isn't only that the words change, authority shifts, and Alice has every right to question it. A dream play foregrounds these satirical reversals. The poem won't behave, the moral won't land, and Alice keeps her footing by questioning the rules. Transformation by tone, not biscuit. Nowhere is this tonal transformation more clear than in the case of the Mad Hatter. Quick origin story. Mad as a Hatter comes from 19th century hat making, which used mercury nitrate to felt fur. Prolonged exposure caused tremor, slurred speech, irritability, mood swings, symptoms people called madness. So the phrase was already in the air, and audiences would have recognized it. In the book, the Hatter can feel menacing at first, then a little pitiful once he's forced to go before the court. In a dream play, the emphasis shifts to a kind of loving fascination with the Hatter's madness.
The poor Hatter's very mad, so they say, so they say. He's indubitably mad, so they say. The why Hatter should be mad, dear, is a puzzle unto me, dear. But they are mad, all agree, dear, so they say.
Everyone insists that Hatters are mad, and that makes it so. But with a shrug, the song tells us it doesn't really matter.
But I do not mean to flatter when I say it doesn't matter.
Crazy or not, the Mad Hatter's still a pretty good guy. But eventually, in Revisions of a Dream Play, the Hatter gets his own solo and it's deliciously unhinged. He's not just mad because people say so, he's running the show. He's a ringleader with appetite and energy. The first verse paints him as a gourmand of a new delicacy, dodo eggs.
When the wind is in the east, on new-laid eggs I always feast.
Then the song pivots to a Pied Piper meets Noah image, shut in by day, parading by night. The Hatter now has command of the world's creatures.
Shut in the wooden ark all day, night is the only time to play. Over the hills and far away, follow my lead around.
The pattern repeats in subsequent verses: confinement, release, parade. The loop recasts the Hatter from gossip's object to the scene's organizer, a would-be founder of a chaotic new world order, fueled by that delicacy of dodo eggs. He's not a tea table oddity anymore, he's a world builder. Between the dodo egg swagger and the Ark Night parade, this Hatter stops being a punchline and starts to feel like trouble I would absolutely follow. The Hatter's new solo gives him agency, but the Cheshire Cat song gives her authority. Rather than being primarily a threatening trickster, she becomes an enforcer of her own social code. She's still gloriously cat-like, still worthy of worship, of course, but now she's given the role of teacher. Alice and Cheshire actually sing a duet in which they praise all things Cheshire. They make plans to send Dinah to study with her, to learn her witty ways, echoing old Father William's snake oil sales patter.
Alice, you're extremely kind, thus to praise my active mind. Let your Dinah to me come at a reasonable sum.
I kind of love that she's not willing to, just waive Dinah's fee. This makes me want a Cheshire-centric spin-off where she's headmistress of a finishing school for naughty but adorable kittens who are always getting into trouble. The whole vibe makes me think of the playful sketches in T.S. Eliot's old Possum's Book of Practical Cats, but that wouldn't arrive on the scene until 1939. Both capture that same knowing, ineffable feline energy.
You're a wondrous Cheshire cat.
By 1886, most people walking into the theater already knew the beats of Alice: the rabbit, the tea party, the trial. The story had been circulating for 2 decades in the public consciousness. Think Star Wars or Harry Potter today. Because the story was so familiar, a dream play didn't need to explain what happens so much as show what happens. For viewers coming to see a theatrical version of something they already knew well, the pleasure is in seeing beloved characters and moments take the stage. The production's job is to make its rendition feel alive, a true incarnation of the story. Within this context, actors' particular flair and interpretation of characters becomes vital. Let's look at 2 stars who made Alice in Wonderland their own, Seymour Hicks and ELLALINE TERRISS, who played the Hatter and Alice respectively. Isn't ELLALINE such a pretty name? That name should come back. Hicks and Terrace reauthored their iconic roles and reset audience expectations for Wonderland as a whole. Now this was Seymour Hicks. Can we just take a moment to appreciate him? He definitely has heightened my long-standing Mad Hatter crush. I can't be the only one with this affliction, right? But Hicks wasn't only a pretty face. He was a concept builder, actor, writer, producer, theater owner. He worked with Jerome Kern and P.G. Wodehouse on the musical stage, and eventually even gave Alfred Hitchcock his first shot at film directing. So yes, the man had gravity. In the 1900 Dreamplay revival, Hicks folded the Mad Hatter into the White Knight, shifting the Hatter from tea table eccentric to guardian guide. That fusion transformed him into a narrative anchor who actually looks out for Alice. Hicks was also likely the source for the Hatter's Ark at Night parade solo, reframing him as a mover and shaker who marshals creatures with momentum. It just makes the Hatter more central, more important. It's thanks to Hicks that we wait for the Hatter, not just the Tea Party. Hicks' wife, ELLALINE, came from a theatrical family. Her father, William TERRISS, was the swashbuckling Breezy Bill, and her mother and brother also had long, successful careers on the stage. TERRISS was already starring in musical comedies in the 1880s when she met and married Hicks. In 1897, her father was stabbed to death by a deranged actor, and her mother passed away shortly after. Public sympathy heightened Terris's fame, and this was the mood when the couple took on their roles of Alice and Hatter in 1900. Together they rewrote the stage chemistry of Wonderland. Yes, Carroll had originally insisted Alice be played by a young girl, but after his death, the 1900 production didn't keep that guardrail. Opposite Hicks, Terris's Alice read as less naive, more partner, a co-lead who holds the stage with the Hatter. Note, in the 1888 production, Alice was actually played by Carroll's choice, Isa Bowman, who was 14 at the time. In contrast, ELLALINE Terriss was 29 when she played Alice in 1900. There was also a production in 1898 starring Rose Hersey as Alice, though we don't know exactly how old she was, but pictures from the production suggest she was quite young. Hicks and Terriss reshaped a dream play, and then after the 1900 production closed, spun it into an entirely quote-unquote new show, Bluebell in Fairyland. Bluebell in Fairyland ran for 300 performances and nudged a young J.M. Barrie toward his own fairy play, Peter Pan. Thanks to Hicks and Terriss, audiences craved a lighter, star-led Wonderland. The Hatter became Alice's guide, and their relationship became central to the show's appeal. These adaptation choices crystallized into expectations that future Alices would inherit. Alongside these theatrical transformations, Alice was also taking shape in light and shadow, in magic lantern slides. Think of magic lantern slides as cinema before cinema, a bright light and mirror projected glass slides onto a screen to entertain crowded parlors or public halls. A live narrator would guide audiences through a sequence of images, from fantasy scenes to natural wonders, turning still pictures into a shared story. These magic lantern slideshows laid the groundwork for the logic of film editing. Think about it. The seemingly simple act of following one image with another, or one narrative beat with another, teaches your brain to read continuity, whether in time, theme, or cause and effect. And magic lanternists didn't just jump from image to image, they could dissolve between them, or layer one slide over another. Magic lantern shows were a vibrant form of collective media viewing. Lantern culture started in the 17th century, dominated the 19th century, and kept going right alongside early film. And hey, if this fascinates you, you can still buy a magic lantern and slide set on eBay. The earliest Alice magic lantern slides I've been able to chase down were from 1876. These were shown as part of an Easter exhibition at the Royal Polytechnic on Regent Street. The artist behind these slides was W.R. Hill, one of the most renowned magic lantern slide makers. He often made spectacular, large-format slides for the institution's celebrated lantern shows. He was a magic lantern innovator and an artist who contributed to key creative effects like the dissolve transition and the rain effect, which made it look like rain was falling on the projected slide, basically a very early aesthetic filter. The main thing I have to say about these early Alice slides is, how gorgeous are they? Just look at those beautiful colors. But also, speaking of color, have you noticed the color on Alice's dress? As Wonderland scholar Phantomwise points out, Alice's dress is pink, not the iconic blue we now assume. And actually, Carroll had been very deeply invested in the color palettes associated with Wonderland. He didn't want them to be too garish or flamboyant. I don't know how he would have felt about Alice's dress being blue or pink or yellow or red, and it has indeed been all of these things. That spectrum in color alone hints at how media forms would keep reshaping our Alice assumptions and expectations, long after Carroll lost whatever control he'd had over Wonderland's spread. But Hill's slides were just the beginning. Perhaps the most prominent set of Wonderland magic lantern slides were the Primus Junior Lecturer series, made between 1905 and 1908. Now, we can't really call these slides pre-cinema. They actually post-date the first Alice in Wonderland film, which we'll analyze later. Maybe we could call them transmedia paracinema, an early example of Alice spreading across multiple media forms at once. The Primus Alice slides were sold in 4 packs of 8, creating a full set of 24. This meant lanternists could tell essentially the full story of Alice, or at least 24 slices of it, if they had all the slides, or just spotlight key moments. They could do this flexibly because audiences already knew the story. The slides would show iconic beats like the Mad Tea Party or the Knave of Hearts trial, and audiences would be expected to generally understand the larger context. For the most part, these slides riff on John Tenniel's original illustrations from the book, but tweak composition and color for the square format and for narration without text. As lantern slide scholar David Henry points out, these slides keep putting Alice into scenes where she wasn't originally there, turning her from an invisible narrator into someone we can actually see watching everything unfold. Here's the thing, when you're reading the book and Tenniel leaves Alice out of an illustration, you don't lose track of her. You know you're still following her story, seeing what she's seeing. But Magic Lantern shows are different. You're getting story fragments stitched together in the dark without Alice physically there to anchor you. It's easy to lose the thread. So the Primus slides just add her back in. She becomes your guide through the chaos, your on-screen proxy. Or in modern terms, your self-insert. We watch her watching, and that keeps us oriented. The images didn't work alone, though. A live lecturer would narrate the show, and the Primus slides came with actual scripts. These stuck pretty closely to Carol's original language. "Consider your verdict," said the king. "No, no," said the queen. "Sentence first, verdict afterwards." "Stuff and nonsense," said Alice loudly. "Off with her head," shouted the queen. "Who cares for you?" said Alice. "You're nothing but a pack of cards." And then the whole pack rose up in the air and came flying down upon her. For some people, this might have been their first time hearing Carol's actual words, but for most, it was probably more like a beloved recitation, a way to emotionally connect the slideshow back to the book they already loved. These Magic Lantern slides didn't just show Alice, they deepened people's attachment to Wonderland as something bigger than one book. They turned it into a personal memory, a shared myth, a visual language you could remix. And this flexibility, this sense that Wonderland could be reshaped, recolored, and re-experienced across different media, would prove essential as Alice made her next leap into moving pictures.
Try to invite us, and a moon to excite us.
Finally, let's talk about Alice merch, because Alice knickknacks are not a new phenomenon. Just like today's fandom merch, Victorian Alice paraphernalia let fans bring Wonderland into their actual lives and signal their love to the world. Carroll himself was surprisingly invested in Alice's life beyond the page. When Barringer, Wallace, and Manners approached him in 1891 about using an Alice-themed children's tin, he loved the idea. He imagined kids using it as a keepsake box, storing toys, letters, photographs, little treasures that mattered to them, a bridge between their real lives and Alice's story world. But when he discovered that they were actually shipping the tin stuffed with biscuits and an inner note he didn't write, he was furious. Too commercial, too disposable. He tried to shut the whole thing down. Eventually he relented, but insisted that any tins he personally sent out had the cookies and notes removed. People joke that he literally took cookies from children, but honestly, I get it. He wanted the tins to be lasting and sentimental, not something you'd eat and throw away. Beyond biscuits, there was this incredible playing card game from around 1900 called The New and Diverting Game of Alice in Wonderland. The concept is brilliant. Players try to create sets of 3 related cards. Draw Alice telescoping? Now you need to find the rabbit and the fan to complete your set. What's fascinating is that, like those Magic Lantern slides, the game treats Alice as a collection of interconnected moments with their own internal logic. But unlike the slides, there's no script explaining how these pieces fit together. You're just supposed to know. It assumes Alice is part of your cultural vocabulary. The cards themselves are gorgeous, based on Tenniel's illustrations but richly colored, and there's something mesmerizing about seeing them all laid out like that, pure image without text. I would absolutely play this after dinner, except that a complete deck is going for about $2,000 on eBay, so maybe not. And then there's fandom tourism. You know the Sheets shop in Through the Looking Glass, where things won't stay still if you look at them? Carol based that on a real Oxford shop that Alice Liddell visited as a child, a Victorian grocery and sweet shop. As Alice's fame grew, it became known as Alice's Shop, and it still operates under that name today. Different century, same pilgrimage site. You're walking into a space that's both Alice Liddell's childhood and the Looking Glass's fantasy, a real-world doorway into Wonderland. A few more treasures from the depths of Victorian Alice fandom. This stunning antique German doll. Look at her. Doesn't she have Alice's stubborn spark and presence of mind? Okay, yes, some might call her creepy, but I think she's a diva with perfect Alice energy. Then these antique doorstops. Who wouldn't want the Mad Hatter or the Cheshire Cat holding their door open for visitors? It sets the tone right away. Though I'd worry they would abandon their post the minute you look away. Now these bisque mugs, I'll admit, plain creepy. The Queen of Hearts is the sugar dish, and the Duchess is the creamer, I think. But who's the teapot? If you know, help me out in the comments. And finally, these gorgeous early 20th century paper dolls, so beautiful and just a bit unsettling too. They keep Wonderland's eerie edge alive, even in little girls' imaginative play. Most of these I found by falling down an eBay rabbit hole, and they're all going for absurd amounts of money. I could absolutely bankrupt myself on old Alice merch if I let my guard down. So that's our tour through early Alice adaptations and extensions, magic lanterns, stage shows, biscuit tins, card games, doorstops. For me, it's a reminder that pre-cinema media culture wasn't just waiting around for movies to be invented. People were already finding 100 creative ways to make Alice new, to keep her alive and evolving. Which adaptation surprised you most? The pink dress, the magic lantern self-insert, Carol's biscuit tin drama? Drop your thoughts below. I'd love to know what landed. Next time, Alice follows the White Rabbit onto celluloid. We'll see how early cinema borrowed from stage magic, rewired point of view, and taught audiences entirely new ways to see Wonderland. See you then.